You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from the past week, as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Podbase Speaker, and more. Of course, don't forget to check out our partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. And let me introduce the rest of the team. Joining us back, thank goodness, because it was rough last week. He is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Miranda?
I'm good. I am so glad that you are back.
I'm glad to be back.
It wasn't the same without you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And the third member of this trio is who?
Who?
It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Yeah, so I also welcome back, Dusty. It was
thank you.
It was an interesting experience. There were a couple things where you were very noticeably missed, and a couple times where I made some choices to let you have some fun this week. So glad to have you back.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
Good. And what a week to be back, because there's a lot to cover. And I know I say this all the time, and I know I say that I say this all the time. But this week we have so much to cover. Literally news breaking as we are going on air and much more. So we are going to get straight into it with the road back to shows with Brendan.
All right. Well, since you dropped that hint, I'll start right there. We had a huge COVID-related announcement. We're going to have ROH has announced that Bandito will not be at Final Battle, as well as many of the other indie events, which I've been talking about him being at, because he tested positive again for COVID-19. So I don't know what he's doing, but he needs to stop it. I'll have more details on how this impacts the ROH segment in the ROH segment, which we are keeping in the second half of the show, because we're trying to keep up with the news. It's literally happening as we were prepping for this show. In more fun, kind of cool news that's not at all related to a global pandemic, we had also announced today, they announced the Rey Mysterio cartoon from the Cartoon Network Latin America, Rey Mysterio versus the Darkness. And we'll have more details on that later as well. But again, this is breaking news, so we're just starting with all of the weirdness that's happening. Early in the week, we file this under the category of Lucha is weird and people in Lucha are weird. Jack Evans was on Twitter saying that he is being extorted by the Del Valle Police Department. He said that he believes he may be arrested for planted drugs soon because he does not plan on paying them off. As of right now, I have not heard any announcement that he's been arrested or that he's returned from Mexico. So, good luck, Jack.
Yeah, that's a scary situation.
So
I mean, yeah, that's
and it's 100% like that. I mean, like, there's no need to doubt it. I mean, like, that's exactly how the police work in Mexico.
Yeah, well, that was what I was about to bring up. Like, the weirdness for this, for me, is that both of this is believable because Jack Evans getting caught with weed on him, completely believable. However, to Dusty, you said you've had an experience like this before, so would you be willing to share that?
Yeah, it's Mexico, and if if you're the güero, you're the white-looking guy, they will come up and harass you. I have been harassed on the beach before. Like if you're the lightest looking guy there, they'll just come up and shake you down like they want money. And so they'll pull over your car. All rental cars and at least in Quintana Roo down south there, they have a special sticker so that cops know it's a rental car. They will pull you over. You have to bribe your way out of it. You do not want to go to the jailhouse. Like, it's much more expensive. And I've literally told cops things like, I have enough money for you, but not for your friends. And it's just the way Mexico is. And it's a strange thing, but that's how it works. And especially when you get into places like Mexico City, Acapulco, further north, a lot of these guys are also cartel affiliated. That's how the cartels are able to exist, is they have a lot of influence and corruption within the police departments. So you're not just pissing off the police, you're pissing off their friends when you do this. And so it
when
really
you don't
took a lot.
cooperate. Yeah.
Right. And so Jack standing up to them is a very big deal and could have repercussions for him. So it took a lot of bravery to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary story in that respect. So I definitely am keeping my eyes and ears open on this. Fortunately, Jack is enough of a public figure in both Mexico and the United States that the repercussions are probably going to be greatly diminished. But if you are on vacation, you are in a similar situation, maybe just find the money in your pocket and then find the nearest embassy. Cause,
it's easier to pay them and get away, walk away than it is to, be locked up. And especially if you're on your own, like if you're not traveling with other people or in a group, it's definitely easier to pay them first and worry about the problems later, which it seems like Jack did.
Yeah, so that, and then our last story, I'm going to just move right ahead because I think we've covered it. Our last story is kind of a fun one too. We teased last week that Expo Lucha had announced one more match, or was going to announce one more match before the weekend. So it was between the time of our recording and the time the show went up. And it's kind of a banger. They announced they were going to have Damien 666 and Black Taurus against Psicosis and a Luchador Sorpresa, but they put a silhouette up there, and the internet has gone crazy and said, that's totally Vikingo. And then they looked closer at the Instagram post where Vikingo was already tagged. So, unofficially, it's going to be Damien 666 Black Taurus against Psicosis and Vikingo. So, good gosh, if you haven't already found a way to get to Philadelphia next year, Vikingo is going to be in a main event match with one of the old school members of Lucha Libre. And Black Taurus is going to be involved too. Like, there's nothing wrong with this match. This is a nearly perfect matchup. I'm just super excited. Did you guys hear about this or have thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I heard about it. Super exciting, but my favorite part was how it's Luchador Sorpresa, but they tagged Vikingo. Like, that is the most Lucha thing on the whole planet.
And the silhouette is pretty.
Yes, and it's clearly Vikingo in the silhouette.
Yeah, it's I like to refer to the Who's That Pokemon segments there,
Exactly.
So, yeah. And even in the tagging, it's like Viking is tagged, which is a little bit more hidden. So that's not, anyways, yes.
But there we go. I just thought I'd end the Road Back to Shows with a fun, exciting bit of news. We're going to move on to the Indie Roundup, where we've got some more fun stuff going on here. A quick shout out: PWR has announced that they're going to have their last show, the 925 show, is going to be up on Fight TV for $10. So you can see Rayo de Jalisco and Mariachi Loco against LA Park and Hijo de LA Park. It's going to be a fun. This was a fun show and well worth the $10. So go on and check that out. For those of you who are into extreme death match, Black Terry has put Zona 23 up there. He did not give us any sort of match lineup, so I can't give you results. Those of you who are frequent listeners of the show know that I am not big on watching death matches, so I did not sit through this footage. It's on YouTube. If you search for Zona 23, you will find the highlights from this week. And again, if you're into the deathmatch stuff, Zona 23's always well worth the watch. And this is really high quality footage, which added to the I'm not going to sit through this because I don't need to see uptight close footage of people getting skewers in their foreheads. That's just not my scene.
Do you even know wrestling, Brendan? Like, do you even watch it? Like,
I totally watch wrestling. You know, actually, we were at the same GCW show where somebody was getting skewers in his forehead, and I was in the back room talking to your friends instead of watching that match.
I had to help the bleeding from his head. He was bleeding, and I had to stop, make sure. Poor
right?
And Cody got cutthroat. Cody just bled all over the place. Jeez, yes. Oh my gosh, that was a bloody show.
Yeah. It was, like I say, for fans who are into that, this is very worth it, just like that show was. Unfortunately, I apologize. I did not sit through that. Again, in the feedback, if you really want to torture me, tell me you want to hear more results of these death matches, and I will sit down and watch them for you. But until you make me do it, I'm not gonna. The results are out for the Crash MLW show. I am intentionally not going to give you the results for this because it is most likely most of these matches are going to wind up on MLW TV. We'll have more info on that later in the show. I will mention that it had a nice mix of indie and AAA talents like Proximo, Adrian Quest, Mecha Wolf, Extreme Tiger, Aramis, Black Danger, Mystices Jr., Black Destiny, Dynamo, Aerostar Drago, Bestia 666, Olive Jinetes del Aire, Rey Horus, Piano 3 Jr., and Black Taurus. So it's a loaded card. And that's not, I took out anybody that was obviously MLW from this. There's a couple people in here who kind of swing both ways on that. So it's a loaded card. I'm really looking forward to seeing these matches, but that's why I don't want to if you are the person that needs the spoilers, they're out there. If you just want the little tease and want to know that it's time to start watching MLW, we'll talk more about that later in the show. We just teased the GCW, and they had a bunch of Lucha matches this last weekend too. On the 4th, they had a card called So Alive from Irving, in the Irving area in Dallas, Texas. This Lucha matches. This featured Tony Deppen, Demonic Lamita, Tony Deppen winning a scramble match, which featured Demonic Lamita, Fuego del Sol, Dragon Kid, Nick Wayne, Gringo Loco, and Sam Stackhouse and Deranged. So already off to a fantastic start there. I've seen some footage of that. It's all floating around, but GCW stuff always worth going over to IWTV when it comes out. The World Tag Team match, the Briscoes defeated Ninja Mac and Dante Leon to retain their GCW World Tag Team titles. Those of you who remember, Ninja Mac was also on a AAA show, I guess 6 months ago now. But, so if you are into masked luchador gimmicks, he's kind of partway there. Thunder Rosa had a match with Allie Katz that she wound up winning. That is just on paper. That is the match that I have to go hunt down and find. So there you go. So that was the 12-4 show, GCW So Alive. They also had GCW So High, where you had Allie Katz in a match with Gino Medina. And she wound up on top on that. I need to see the story on that because I'm not sure how that they're both good, but Gino's my boy. He needs to win that match.
Yeah.
Ninja Mac had another match against Jimmy Lloyd. He came out on top on that. We had probably the most gift match here, which featured ASF Drago Kid against Chris Carter. ASF Drago Kid and Chris Carter against Gringo Loco, Demonic Flamita, and Lowrider. So, it's just, there was crazy stuff that happened there. Drago Kid was super gifts from both of these matches. He's definitely a younger talent to keep your eye on. And then, Bandito beat Tony Deppen in the main event. So those were our GCW events. Did either of you guys I'm gonna end the segment unless you guys have something you want to say.
I did want to add GCW announced just a little bit ago that Dr. Wagner would be appearing for them in Dallas February the 5th.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great catch. I thought.
Yeah, it was literally just minutes ago that they announced it.
Yeah, I thought they'd already announced that, but
I saw it on social media posted.
Yeah, it just got posted. So
okay, that's my bad for thinking they had already done it. Thank you for that. That's man, now I got to figure out how to get to Dallas for a match too.
Yeah, I know. That's my thoughts. Like, Dr. Wagner. Like, I really want to see Dr. Wagner. So yeah. And I mean, he's still good. I've seen him live a couple of times. He's still good. So for those of you who have not had the chance to see him live, this is a really good chance. And you never know when he'll round that corner to. Maybe he shouldn't have done that match, but he's not there yet. That's my road back to my indie roundup for this week.
I do want to throw out just two things.
Okay.
One, this past Sunday in Phoenix, Arizona, Board Promotions had a show that was a pretty stacked card. It included a trios match with Lil Cholo, Mr. Iguana making his Arizona debut, and Mini Fusión versus the team of Los Guerreros de Aire, Hijo del Impostor, El Dragón, who are featured very regularly. Trying to remember the promotion that they work in. But more in the Texas area, El Paso area, and then Skybird, where Los Guerreros de Aire won. But big reaction, lovely reaction for Mr. Iguana. And then the main event, you had Aéreo and Damian 666 versus Pagano and Psycho Clown. And Psycho Clown was bombarded with people the entire show. Such a great turnout, but a big congratulations to Board Promotions for throwing such a great Lucha Libre show with such a great roster and talent. Finally got to meet Mr. Iguana in person, which was very great, and he is just as lovely in person as he is. They say never meet your heroes, but he is someone you absolutely want to seek out and meet because he is truly a spectacular person. I also want to do one last reminder of the Masked Republic Lucha Libre Mexicana show, which is happening this Saturday, December 11th at 7 p.m. Cathedral City, California. At the Agua Caliente Casino. Tickets are still just $10, and if you're over the age of 21, you get $5 in casino credit. Scheduled to appear, the legendary Felino, making his Lucha Libre, Viva la Lucha Libre debut, along with Felino Jr., the NWA World Tag Team Champions, Bestia 666 and Mecha Wolf will also be in action. Psychosis, of course, Super Astro Jr., El Cucuy from PWR, Diablo Azteca, Diosa Quetzal will also be making her Viva la Lucha Libre debut. So, again, a packed show for just $10 plus $5 casino credit in Cathedral City, California. I will be there, so I will make sure to bring back results to the show next week.
So that is very potentially our last chance to see Diosa Quetzal, as she's been rumbling about wanting to retire. It is a lucha retirement, so you know, mileage may vary on it, but yeah, worth your time if you haven't seen it to get out there to Cathedral City. I'm kind of jealous you get to do it. I have a question for you, Miranda.
Yes.
Was Yeska jealous when you were talking with Mr. Iguana?
You know, Yeska was not around, but I did talk to Mr. Iguana about how Phoenix is the right temperature for Yeska. That dry heat in December is a perfect time of year, so she seemed to actually be very happy. She had some great spots in the match as well. She was exhausted. Mr. Iguana in Mini Fusion had to carry her out of the ring. She was just really drained after the match. It was a very intense match, but really one of the highlights of the entire night. So, and Mr. Iguana was noting how he, believe this weekend he's traveling to North Carolina and Chicago, or at least, or maybe it was last weekend or this past week. So Mr. Iguana is continuing to hit the U.S. in all places.
Yeah.
So you may see Mr. Iguana at a local Lucha Libre show. So I just highly recommend watching him in person. He is just as fun and entertaining as you see in all the videos, and he's genuinely such a nice, kind person.
So cool. You love it when the people that seem that way genuinely are that way. And yeah, incredible.
Yes. I told you we had a pack show, and that's just the beginning. Thank you, Brendan, for the road back to shows and the indie roundup. Up next, you know what time it is. We're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, letting us know, everyone know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central podcast network with this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. special guests, and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
And we're back now with really the nitty-gritty of the news this week. And how can we not talk about TripleMania Regia? I mean, so much happened from it. It really took the world of Lucha Libre and just pro wrestling by storm. So, Dusty, go ahead. What happened?
Okay, a lot happened, actually. But we'll run down the results first, and then we'll discuss the highlights. The first match of the show saw Flamer, La Itra, and Lady Maravilla defeating Fabi Apache, Lady Shani, and Sexy Star 2. Second match of the card saw Cuatrero, Forastero, and Sansone defeating Carta Brava Jr., Mocha Cota Jr., and Tito Santana Jr., and also Tito Santana, apologies, and also the Vipers team of Abismo Negro Jr., Aries, and Psychosis 2. Then we had Diamante Azul, Puma King, Sam Adonis defeating Chessman, Dave the Clown, and Murder Clown. Sam Adonis had a scary moonsault in that match, but he seems to be doing well. We had next match on the card, Dragon Lee and Dralistico defeating Laredo Kid and surprise wrestler Willie Mack, who was honestly the most over foreigner on the card. Pretty great night for Willie Mack. Next match, FTR, Cash Wheeler, and Dax Hardwood defeated Lucha Bros, Phoenix, and Pentagon Jr. The next match was Cain Velasquez, Pagano, and Psycho Clown versus LA Park, Reyes Scorpion, and Taurus. And our main event, El Del Vikingo defeated Samurai Soul, Bandito, Bobby Fish, and Jay Lethal to become the Mega Campeon champion. And amazing show. First up, we'll discuss FTR versus the Lucha Bros. And what was a surprise to me, and at first I thought it was just a surprise to me. I was a little out of the weather last week, but apparently it was a surprise to everybody. It was a ladder match for the tag team titles. They just kind of brought that out of nowhere.
I mean, is that a pun to say that escalated quickly?
So, question for you, Dusty: were you watching the Fight English commentary or the Spanish commentary?
The Spanish commentary.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is one of the areas where watching the English really helped with that, because it became very obvious it was a last minute change. So
was it? Yeah.
They clearly had notes, and Matt Stryker is not afraid to say, this is a change that I wasn't made aware of. So
yeah.
there we go.
Yeah. Besides the surprise, this was a really solid and a really exciting match. I was kind of surprised again how adeptly FTR handled the switch to a ladder match. You would think that the, ladder match would be more of the Lucha Bros territory, but FTR did a great job. I thought they acclimated to Mexico really well. I thought they did a great job. They kind of did the foreign heels thing where they were all American flag, the jingoistic thing. I'm not a big fan of that. but AAA seems to be a thing they like to do, and you know.
A note on that actually is according to Vicky, who came out with them, they were those were tribute outfits to Los Gringos Loco.
Oh, very cool. I had wondered about that, but I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was just kind of the United States heel in Mexico, but yeah, very cool. Speaking of Vicky, this was her first appearance in AAA, and I think her first appearance in Mexico that wasn't with WWE. I don't even know if she's been with WWE to actually appear in Mexico. She really showed the crowd how heel heat is done. They didn't seem to have a whole lot of heel heat for FTR, but for Vicky they did. Like, they just got earlier in the show before the match, they harass Hugo, kind of march him out, make him, say all their insults and everything. And yeah, it was just so cool how she turned the crowd against her pretty much instantly. That's a unique talent, and for a lesser person, I mean, you could see where the boos might get to you, but Vicky loves it. Like, she loves to be the heel, and she's really good at it. So that's fun. And go ahead, Brenda. Sorry.
Oh, no. I'm just that was just I was just agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Vicky was great. She was kind of the best part of FTR for me. But I honestly thought this was one of the best matches, if not the best match we've seen between these two guys. Something about the prestige of TripleMania, the excitement of the night, the ladder match, all the stuff going on. It seemed to me that it helped propel FTR to a level that I didn't expect, especially in Mexico. Like, I mentioned how adept they were at the match, but you think of them as such a mat-based and such a brawl-based team. They literally had the tagline, no flips, just fists at one time. But they just, they were fantastic. It really impressed me. However, Penta was really the star of this match, in my opinion. He had a great spot where his mask was tied up in the ring ropes. FTR were climbing the ladder. He had to take the mask off while hiding his face and also knock the ladder over to help Lucha Bros stay in the match. Great spot. The finish saw Vicky throw powder in Pentagon's face, and he jumped off the ladder backwards and fell through a table, while Dax Hardwood unhooked the belts and got FTR the win. Like, this was I was excited for this match, but it was such an impressive, and it was beyond what I expected from these guys, and I really liked that. Loved the addition of the ladder match, and for being a last minute addition, everybody rolled with the change just beautifully. I really recommend this match. It's nothing new, nothing we haven't seen before, but they do it in a way that's so engaging and entertaining that you can't help but, enjoy it. You can't help but feel incensed when Vicky throws that powder in Pentagon's face. Like,
you were already angry at her. Like,
yes.
To your point, like, she did such a good job and that would have been a very pro Vicky crowd if she hadn't.
Yeah, she understood the assignment.
Yeah. I do want to do one thing here, Dusty. This is a common mistake I hear, and 13-year-old boys all over the internet are tittering every time. It's Dax Harwood. There's no D in it.
Harwood. Huh.
Good to know.
I learned something new today. Harwood. Dax Harwood.
No D. No D. So
yeah. Good to know. All this time.
it's just my inner 13-year-old boy giggles every time you say his name the other way, and I just.
Yeah, I've always said it that way. Yeah, I was today years old when I learned. Our next match on the card, we had the big trios match between Cain Velasquez, Pagano, Psycho Clown versus LA Park, Rey Scorpion, and Taurus. But the true story of this match was Cain Velasquez and LA Park. LA Park was obviously the Rudo, and he was trying his damnedest. Like, he needed to talk to Vicky before the show because he had the crowd just eating out of the palm of his hand. They were 100% on his side and were surprisingly very anti-Cain Velasquez because they just had that Rudo love for LA Park. And they were not happy when Cain won. He put Park in an armbar submission. Rayo de Jalisco had showed up to distract LA Park, leading to Cain getting the submission. So cool to see him. I feel like it may possibly be building something between them for AAA, Rayo de Jalisco and LA Park, but Rayo's also like 60 years old, maybe over 60. And I don't know what they're going to do with him. Cool to see him though. The part I really enjoyed though was the interactions between Cain Velasquez and LA Park. They had that undefinable quality in the match. I think we may see a singles feud between them just based on the crowd reaction. It was easily the biggest crowd reaction. After the match, Nuevo Generacion Dinamita show up, and Rayo, he had to heel on them too. He reminded Cuatrero and Sanson that he won their father Cien Caris's masks, kind of seemingly threatening to take theirs as well.
I'll take
really
theirs.
Good stuff. Yeah.
That was my takeaway from my limited Spanish was I took your dad's mask and your dad's hair, and I'll take yours too if you guys get in my way. It was more or less how I heard. Yeah.
Dang.
I can get behind angry badass Grandpa Rayo de Jalisco. Like
yes.
I
100%.
mean, like,
yeah. I did want to comment on the fact that obviously LA Park was super over, but Lucha Blog, among other people, posted a theory that that goes to certain amounts of Mexican culture we don't necessarily talk about as much. Cain performed in a mask in this.
Yes, he did. Kind of Sun Devils, like the Arizona State Sun Devils style.
Yeah.
That I saw it compared to that, and that's very accurate for what it was.
It did look very much like the Sun Devils mask. So the speculation there is that some of the heat on him was because he kind of had the audacity to adapt this mask culture. Well, he's still pretty much viewed as an outsider. So, and obviously LA Park is a homegrown lucha talent that people have loved for generations. So, I just wanted to touch on that. I thought that was an interesting angle on that story that,
yeah, he had kind of a, like a bull, I guess you'd call it, mask before.
And he wore that as more of a presentation mask, as I remember.
Yeah, like an entrance, to the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, very, yeah. The things you don't think about and the culture that exists within Lucha, it's so cool, like the subtleties.
Yes.
And
I think it's for some people, some are a bit more on the traditionalist side. And I think that's very much more rooted in the traditional culture where now even I remember seeing and hearing some comments about people even who have issues with presentation masks that are put on and off. Because masks are such a definitive thing. When they're on, and when they're off, they're off. So I feel like it's also, for some people, a new school, old school mentality, when it comes to mask wearing. I think there's a group that's a lot more open-minded about masks and their presentations and their utilizations, while there's definitely a group that is much more traditional with the wearing of masks.
And if any group is going to rally behind a wrestler, it's the traditionals are going to rally behind LA Park.
Oh yeah.
So, that's kind of the recipe there for this perfect storm.
Also on the card, we had, as I mentioned, El Del Vikingo winning the Mega Campeon Championship. He won it for the first time, defeating Bobby Fish, Jay Lethal, Samurai Del Sol, formerly known as Kalisto in WWE, and Bandito. Kenny Omega was originally supposed to defend the Mega Campeon Championship against Vikingo, but he was forced to vacate the title due to injury after holding the championship for 765 consecutive days. And what a match. Despite not being what Kenny Omega versus Vikingo would have been, it was still an excellent match. I personally wasn't a fan of some of the American editions. like Jay Lethal, Bobby Fish, but the crowd actually seemed to be very excited for the chance to see some American luchadors mixing it up with or American wrestlers mixing it up with the luchadors. So I can't begrudge them that. You got to remember the in-house crowd and the local fans too. So even though we see these guys a lot, they don't, especially locally. I understand the excitement now after having seen the crowd. Vikingo won the match with a reverse 450 splash on Samurai del Sol. So cool. Despite feeling Kenny Omega's absence in this match, it was clear that it was Vikingo's night, as his work had him just head and shoulders above the rest of the talent in technique and in main event momentum. And by that, I mean there was never any question that this was a guaranteed win for Vikingo, or that this wasn't the night he was going to be, vaulted into being the top of the card talent, because we've all known it. We've talked about it for years. Vikingo is the guy. Mm-hmm. Even with the inclusion of Bandito, Vikingo was clearly the best wrestler in the match. Like, his panache, his charisma, his believability, the emotional attachment to seeing him win the title, the emotions of the other wrestlers seeing him win the title. It was just incredible, and it made for such a fantastic and feel-good moment. Vikingo's had a really great couple of years. He became a dad recently. He's Mega Campeon champion. He's arguably the biggest star in AAA, at least the biggest rising star. He's not necessarily at a Psycho Clown level yet, but if you're in the know and you know good wrestling, you know Vikingo. People that I know that watch wrestling, or people that on my social media that are wrestling fans that don't necessarily watch Lucha or aren't Lucha fans, were talking to me about Vikingo this week. They wanted to talk about Vikingo.
The fight chat room in the English side was about two matches. It was the AAA tag title matches and the match that Vikingo was in. They couldn't even name anybody else who was in it, but that was before the match started. But that was the two things they chattered about all night long. So Vikingo is definitely the guy that is reaching across the aisles here.
He is and has been. I think a lot of that came about when AAA did the Lucha Fighter series.
Yes.
I think that was something that really made him stand out, and I think just the people within the Lucha world, that is a name you continuously hear on all levels. So he's just picking up that momentum everywhere he goes.
And Conan constantly name dropping him on the podcast. Like, he's reaching an English speaking audience on that podcast, and constantly talking about Vikingo being the next big thing.
Well, and even like Kenny Omega mentioning Vikingo, I was surprised how many people. I have a wrestling friend who only follows AEW. Like, that's the only promotion he follows. He was a lapsed fan for about 20 years. After WCW ended, he just stopped. He didn't watch wrestling. During the pandemic, he started watching AEW. And even he wanted to know, because he had heard Kenny Omega mention Vikingo. And so he's like, what's Vikingo like? Is he any good? And just the name recognition from word of mouth, even in the internet era, has been incredible for Vikingo. He's a star. He's a star. He's going to be a main event guy. This was clearly his ascension to the top of the card. He's so talented, and his character is unique. There's some, he did some tapings recently. I saw some clips from, I won't spoil anything. He's got a new helmet that's like, so cool. Like, he has got the presentation figured out. He's got the moves figured out, the charisma, the body language. He doesn't even need to be able to cut a promo with what he can do. His work speaks for itself. He is going to be the guy. I think within the next 2 to 5 years, he's going to be the guy somewhere in America too. He's just too good to stay down. And I want to get to this so that we've for sure got time. We had the return of Taya Valkyrie and AAA.
Yes.
Oh, so exciting. It was one of the biggest surprises of the night, and a taped promo reminiscent of both Rey Mysterio and Andrade showing up in AAA promos after their WWE releases. We saw Taya Valkyrie. I mean, that's pretty good company to be in for all three of them. Like, they're all equally lucky. She showed up to challenge Deonna Purrazzo for the AAA Reina de Reinas Championship. Later that evening, that Saturday evening on Twitter, she announced that she was now a free agent and is currently accepting bookings. She hadn't been in AAA since December 2019 when she was a lumberjack at Guerrera de Titans, and her 3 reigns as Reina's champion lasted an outstanding 945 days. She is the longest reigning women's champion AAA of all time.
And,
so,
yeah. And that match that she had for the third reign that ended basically in a hardcore situation, still talked about to this day as one of the best matches AAA has put on, period. Like, I don't even want to talk about women's division. It was just that good.
That's when Taya went from being a star to a superstar. Like, that match was she could do it all. She could, the bloody stuff, the violent stuff. People talk about Britt Baker. Britt Baker does a lot of that same stuff. But Taya started it. She was the originator. There would be no Britt Baker. There would be no Blood and Guts Thunder Rosa if Taya had not had that match in AAA.
Preach!
Yeah. I mean, she shattered those expectations and those blocks along the way, and she doesn't get the credit that she deserves for being an innovator and a trailblazer, but Taya really has been. And the way things went in NXT, like, they just fucked up. But Taya is going to be the star. I mean, like, can you imagine having Taya not making her the star? At least,
know, they done messed up.
One championship match. Yeah. I mean, like, come on.
We'll get to the WWE portion of the show where we can tell more about what they messed up.
I understand them wanting to do forward focusing on the young people. I'm just going to say that. But yeah, they still could have done so much better. We can go into that later.
And there was some chatter. Brendan knows a little bit more about it, about Omega being stripped of the title, but Deonna Purrazzo wasn't. But I think it's obvious it's because they were waiting for Taya. What do you think?
Well, that's just it. So in the story, what they said was Kenny Omega hadn't defended the championship in too long and wasn't going to be able to. So I think the defining difference in story will be the fact that Deonna Purrazzo, in theory, will be available. Now, I can't remember, one of the two of you posted some stuff about her not appearing at other shows as well.
Right, there was some information on Fightful regarding her lack of return to Impact, and that was kind of her choice, that her character is sick of seeing the title, and, couldn't stand to see it if it wasn't her title, so she was going to focus her efforts elsewhere.
Okay.
And very exciting for us as Lucha fans. That's honestly a main event matchup for AAA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to shake the world in 2021 or 2022.
So that seems to be where, and we're getting this match out of it. So I am not upset that they got different but equal, different treatment and somewhat unequal. But we also know we're going to get that Vikingo Omega match whenever Omega is healthy. So I'm excited for all of this. Maybe we'll get both of those matches on the same card. That is one of the things I do want to address, because I saw a lot of this in the English commentary. This card on paper was fantastic. Some of the matches didn't live up to expectations. A lot of American fans are kind of unaware of AAA's chaotic structure, so they were getting a little frustrated by the majority of the matches ending with outside interference or run-in or just Vicky throwing powder in the faces. Like, to them, it all felt like it was samey, without realizing that in AAA, a lot of these finishes are the normal, and the fact that we were getting a variety of run-ins. We were getting a heel run-in versus a babyface run-in. You had the Torontes angle in the women's match at the beginning, which we did barely even touched on. all of this was different to us, but I guess to a casual fan, it just looked like every job was a screw job ending. I just wanted to address that, there's definitely a different kind of climate in AAA for how they handle their matches, although I agree to a certain extent that not all of this card lived up to my expectation. However, the two matches we were just talking about exceeded, so I was still super happy with the whole card overall.
The referees thing, a friend of mine that was familiar with AAA, or with Lucha, I guess, but hadn't watched a TripleMania before, said, so why are the referees, what's the deal with the referees? And I was like, oh, you can be bribed. There's good guys, there's bad guys. He's like, oh, I just figured all officials in Mexico were corrupt.
Oh, God.
See, and that's why it works. That's why Toronto's character works, because the Mexicans are just like, whatever. It's just like the police, right? Of course the guy can be bribed. That's why Tarantes was being introduced with the Rudos team in the match, even though he was Hijo de Tarantes, even though he was also supposed to be the referee, because everybody knew, even the in storyline, even the AAA officials knew he was the bad guy and he was going to try and help them win. They still put him in that match.
Yeah. Very cool. And also, I believe Vikingo has made his first title defense.
Yes, so I don't have a lot of details on this yet. It was, he defended in Saltillo on the AAA Barba spot show. The Sunday after last Sunday. And this was against Laredo Kid. So it sounds like it was going to be a banger. The shows, according to Lucha Blog, are usually taped and put up on Mass Lucha, but it may be as much as a couple of months before we see it. So technically this is the first defense. I'm sure AAA will not mention this when he defends it on one of their actual TV shows, and then this one will get added into the middle somewhere. But yeah, he has defended in a match against Laredo Kid. I am super jealous I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
We must find it. It must be on the internet.
Yeah, well, it will be. Mas Lucha is very reliable about putting that stuff up. Just they have to do things semi-legitimately and wait for rights and whatever else. I'm gonna say bribes because that's our theme of the night.
Yeah, for all this AAA news and more, TripleMania news, everything else, reviews, be sure to check out luchacentral.com. Pep Carrera's got all kinds of reviews and everything else on there, all about Lucha Libre, and it's all free at luchacentral.com. Next, go ahead.
I was going to say, an area that Brendan and I struggled a little bit last week, and we just spent half the time kind of complaining about storyline, is AEW. So please take us back to basics with what happened this week in AEW television.
Yeah, first up, we had Rampage. Friday night, we saw Death Triangle, the team of Penta and Pac versus FTR. This was a non-title match with Alex Abrahantes and Tully Blanchard as seconds. It was really set to whet our appetite for the next night's TripleMania Regia match, but Pac stepped in to replace Phoenix due to Phoenix having some visa issues. He was unable to get back from Mexico in time with everything going on, so Pac stepped in. This was a great match. I mean, it was very excellent. 20 minutes long. It had everything you'd expect from it, but without really going anywhere. We saw a dusty finish at the end that saw Malachi Black run in and hit Pac with Black Mist after Harwood, not Hardwood, faked a knee injury before getting the pin for FTR. It set up more of the feud with FTR, the Lucha Bros. I think that's eventually building to a winner takes all AEW titles versus AAA titles, but it could be anybody's guess. Yeah. And I don't know that it will be Lucha Bros night the way things are going. I hope so. We've also got the Malachi Black thing with Pac, and they have their feud that's ongoing. A lot of wheels in motion right now in AEW. And I noticed during this and like after the match, I was thinking, especially after I was thinking about it and through the weekend, that this is where AEW really succeeds over WWE and where WWE used to excel, is they weave all these things together into one continuous storyline. You're seeing guys mix it up. During the Attitude Era, that was like WWE's thing, WWF at the time. Everybody got woven in. The stories included everybody, matches included everybody, and advanced the stories. They really had a good thing going, and AEW just does such a good job at that. We talked about the winner takes all. When AEW builds to a story, they don't swerve us to surprise us for no reason, just because we might have figured out what it was. They allow us to engage in that emotional reward of investing in the story and knowing where it's going and getting the conclusion we hoped for and expected. Like, that's their thing. Really a big difference in the storytelling in the matches, just a strong difference in the product that I noticed on Rampage. Dark Elevation had nothing terribly applicable, but Tuesday Dark had the return of Mysterioso in AEW. He is Rey Mysterio's cousin, I believe. He's a member of the family. He wrestled against Lee Moriarty. It was the opening match of the night. It was extremely solid match. Mysterioso looked like a star as much as Moriarty did. It could have been anybody's match. Mysterioso got in a ton of great offense. It really looked at times like he was going to get the pin and win, but it was just Moriarty's night. He picked up the win. Both guys looked fantastic, though. It did as much for Mysterioso as it did for Moriarty, even though it was a big win for Moriarty. Great work from them. Mysterioso is showing up in New Japan off and on now. A lot of good stuff. And speaking of New Japan, we had Rocky Romero on AEW Dynamite this Wednesday night. It was fantastic. He joined Chuck Taylor. They wrestled against the Young Bucks. The match was largely to put over the return of Trent Beretta and his lovely mother, Sue. But it was so cool to see Rocky Romero on Dynamite. Like, that was a real thrill for me. The Young Bucks are back, and this was very much a traditional Young Bucks style match. It offered nothing new. If you don't like the Young Bucks, this wasn't your thing. This could have easily been right at home in New Japan 10 years ago. Like, this match was that kind of match. If you like that, that's great. They did a great job. If it's not your thing, it's still not going to be your thing. The Bucks don't offer anything new, but the melange and styles and the globalization of what were regional styles even 10 years ago are these days coming together in ways that you couldn't have expected, and nowhere is it more apparent than in AEW. Like, you're seeing the lucha thing come together with the Japanese thing, the strong style Japanese style, Rocky Romero's Black Tiger at one time in New Japan. I mean, so much cool stuff going on, and you're seeing it all come together in this match. Really fun and entertaining. At the end, Romero hit a backslide on Matt for a 2 count, but Nick hit the Meltzer driver and got the Bucks the win in 15 minutes and 41 seconds.
Nice.
Yeah, it was not a huge week for Lucha and AEW, but a fun week in AEW. Lots of good stuff.
I did want to touch back on a couple of things. I'll touch back on one thing. So last week when we covered, I teased that they also had the Sammy Guevara title defense on that Rampage, and I thought you were going to talk about it, so I said we were going to talk about it this week.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic match. That's the thing. It's always a fantastic match. But the other reason I bring that up is because while we were recording, Jose put up a tweet showing showing Andrade in his tranquilo pose and showing Sammy in his kind of showy pose, and said that this is the actual open title match everybody wants to see.
Ooh,
so
yeah. It was a great match against Tony Nese. They had recorded Rampage after the previous Dynamite, and the crowd was a little dull. You could tell they were tired. You could tell it was late. But during the Sammy Guevara match, they really woke up. I mean, they came to life. It was a lot of fun. They were super evenly matched for a lot of it. Like, it could have been anybody's match at times. Sammy was able to hit the GTH, retained the win. So cool. To begin with, was not a big fan of Sammy as a babyface. Like, I didn't get it. Not that I didn't get it, but I loved the Rudo Sammy so much. But the way that the fans have gotten behind him and the quality of the matches he has kept putting on, I mean, we talk about Vikingo. I mean, Sammy is almost in the same spot. Quality match after quality match. He's great on the microphone. When he's a heel, you love to hate him. When he's a face, you hate how much you love him. You know, it's like, he's so good. Sammy is the total package. As much as Vikingo, just people talk about the 4 pillars of AEW, and truly I think Sammy has more promise than MJF or Jungle Boy. Not to say that they don't have promise, but I genuinely think Sammy's talent is going to carry him further than it carries them.
So you know that they are going to be main eventers in AEW, but
absolutely,
our opinion is that Sammy is going to be kind of almost a legendary figure that will be talked about.
Absolutely. I think, I think he'll be well remembered. He's going to be one of the guys that, like you say, he's going to be a Chris Jericho. I mean, it's easy to make the Chris Jericho comparison when they're both in Inner Circle, but he genuinely has that je ne sais quoi like Chris Jericho had when he was young in WCW.
Yeah.
This is the same. I mean, and maybe Sammy might be younger than Jericho was at the time. I mean, he's really still a young guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not that they're not all going to be main event stars, but some people are stars and some people are legends. Like Brendan said, Sammy's going to be a legend.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember this. 10 years from now, you'll be like, I remember those 3 weirdos on Lucha Central said this was going to happen, and I was laughing the whole time because that one guy kept saying hardwood, and they couldn't remember anybody's names, but they were right about that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do want to mention, we talked about Jack Evans earlier and his situation, and it seems things have just not been going his way. A fan on Twitter had made a tweet about how he was worried for the Hybrid 2 after there had been so many high-profile signings in AEW lately. Was there still a place for like a lower mid-card tag team like the Hybrid 2? And Jack Evans, retweeted him and said something to the effect of, "You just read my mind." And it's just, It's
a legitimate question, and we talked a lot about that in the Miranda's kind of rant about what's happening over at AEW to Lucha Talent last week. The new toy syndrome really is putting them in a bad place.
It absolutely
I just get hot about it because they keep assigning so many people and people get lost in the shuffle.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true.
In some cases, I'm not upset about that, and others like this one, I'm super upset about it. So, it's a mixed bag for me. Like, we're a couple guys definitely are missing out on big I shouldn't say guys. A couple people are definitely missing out on really big opportunities, whereas a couple other people are learning the hard lesson that they really should have taken advantage of the opportunity when they had it. So,
right. I can't help but think about that match between Jack and Kenny Omega where he got blown up like 3 or 4 minutes into it and was just sucking air the whole time, and obviously out of his element. He was not the Jack Evans we all remembered, and I feel like that completely derailed everything for them in AEW. Lately, when we see the Hardy family office, we have not seen Jack with the group. It's only been Angelico. Allegedly, AEW, there'd been some rumors the other day when he talked about the tweet that Angelico had been offered a singles run and had turned it down out of loyalty to Jack, and that they were going to stick together as a team and negotiate wherever they went as a team. And so there's a lot of things going on that could happen here. The Hybrid 2 could easily, especially with Jack, Jack is at the cusp of something. He can change. The things that you see everybody do now, if he didn't invent them, he was one of the first few people doing them 20 years ago.
He adopted them, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he might have been a little sloppy or overshot his mark, but nobody really did what Jack Evans did. And now everybody does that, and they all do CrossFit and have a six-pack and cut muscles, and it's just a different game. And so I think that if Jack changes things up with Angelico's already super interesting Aveo style, that we could see, something unique and special from them. I really hope this is the beginning of a renaissance for Jack Evans and Angelico, a new era. We'll see what happens. For all of this Lucha news and more, check in at luchacentral.com, your place for all things Lucha Libre. And now we've got Miranda. She's got some interesting news with MLW and their goings on.
Yes. So this week in MLW, I just have to say, is one of my favorite episodes that I've seen from MLW in quite some time. Such a good packed episode. So much action. So many good matches. All of them very different. Such a great variety of matches. We first start off with the briefcase full of cash match, where essentially the winner gets a briefcase full of Cesar Duran's money. Addis versus Adamis. Again, this is technically, commentary mentioned that they had already wrestled once, but they've technically wrestled twice. And Addis has now formed this alliance as well, with Holly Dead and Dr. I keep forgetting. This is where we keep forgetting things. But I want to say Dr. D, but to the equivalent, they have cut.
Holly Dead's manager. I can't remember. Yeah.
Yes. But, they have now formed this kind of tight-knit group. Adamis, came out with such awesome blue gear. And from the get-go, this match was really interesting. A great sequence in the beginning. Just the back and forth between Addis and Adamis. Commentary played up, and you could tell throughout the match how well they know each other. It's literally super fluid, consistent movement. But the action went outside the ring as well, where Addis ended up doing a outsider's or razor's edge onto Adamis onto the ramp that just sounded brutal. And to me, this was just a match that was somewhat long for a Alpha Fusion match, but one that kept my interest the entire time. A really, really fun match. Holly did cause enough of a distraction towards the end with the referee, so Adamis could take advantage of that, and ended up using his finisher for the win and the briefcase. But this does feel like some inklings of, a deeper storyline between the two. And much, much more. We also got the debut of Enzo versus Matt Cross. And I'll just say, this match was better than it had any right to be.
Truly.
Right?
Enzo's like the diamond in the rough. You didn't know what he had in him. And I loved, though, how the dynamic with him and Matt brought Matt out of his shell a little bit, where you could see him being a little bit more playful in the ring. Still super serious, still super amazing in his technical ability. But you saw Enzo being able to pull things out of Matt Cross. And I feel like long term, it looks like they're going to go in a different direction with a feud for Enzo. But I would have loved to see an Enzo-Matt Cross feud kind of go longer. Because I feel like Enzo has the personality that, a Matt Cross could really leverage. And Matt Cross has a wrestling ability that could really add some authenticity to Enzo. So that match, just my big thing is it was better than it had any right to be. I did not expect it to be that good, but Matt Cross is that good, and I think he made Enzo look like $1 million. And as to Dusty's point, Enzo is a talented wrestler, and commentary did play up, how polarizing Enzo is. Mm-hmm. That sounds like something they're going to utilize and leverage in MLW.
We had Alex Hammerstone fighting Mil Muertes all up and down the back area. He was supposed to be in action, but got attacked instead, and that was a consistent theme throughout the night. And then we hit to, our main event, the Philly street fight for the World Tag Team titles, Los Parks versus 5150. And just the energy that 5150 brings when they came out, it was just obvious the crowd was so into them. They came out with the shopping cart. They came out with the weapons. And a very interesting point where it did feel like Los Parks were the underdog. You just knew with the physical aggression and grittiness that 5150 brought to the table, a team like Los Parks that's usually in the advantage, that usually has, plays the numbers game pretty well, was the underdog. And that became apparent, from the very get-go. It was a street fight, so no tags, all weapons legal, anything went. And they utilized that throughout the entire match. We did try to get some quote unquote twin magic from Los Parks. The commentary did play up that, Los Parks practiced the free bird rule when it comes to the MLW tag team titles. So between Hijo de LA Park Jr. and LA Park, they rotate with the titles. As far as who was in action, we saw Hijo de LA Park and LA Park Jr. But eventually towards the middle of the match, who did we discover under the ring? Well, that was LA Park himself, El Papa. And he came out, to assist Hijo de LA Park and do some twin magic. However, it was caught. And who came out to help 5150? Homicide came out and dragged LA Park from underneath the ring, and they were brawling out on the outside, which caused enough of a distraction for 5150 to capitalize on that. They ended up bringing a big-ass wooden table out with 5150 spray painted on it. Slice Boogie got the spear through, believed to LA Park Jr., and ended up, both of them, both Danny and Slice, pinned them for the win to become your new MLW Tag Team Champions. This was just an overall really fun episode to watch. If you wanted high-flying, fast-paced lucha libre, you had that in your first match. If you wanted more technical wrestling, you had that in the second match. If you wanted a street brawl, you got it in your third match. It really brought so much, and this is, again, one of my favorite episodes of MLW that I have seen in quite some time. So I always say you got to check out MLW, but you need to check out this week's MLW.
I'm going to blatantly cross-promote here. We talked a bit about this in an interview we just recorded, so keep your ears open. We're going to talk a lot about this kind of clash of styles in the upcoming weeks.
Yes, it's such a good episode. It's fairly short too. It just feels like they put more wrestling in an hour plus worth of content than you get in 3 hours of WWE.
Well, I'll give you some numbers on that. In the first hour, your average match doesn't happen until 25 minutes into the show on Raw, and then it's only a 4 to 6 minute match. Ugh. Whereas we're starting in less than 5 minutes on the MLW show, and it's usually 7 to 12 minutes, if not all the way to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I know there's a lot of wrestling content out there, and that's why you listen to the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, so you get your fill. But MLW is one of those shows where you get a lot for a little bit of time. It is both quality and quantity. In just a short amount of time. So this week's episode is now live on YouTube, so make sure to check it out, as well as previous episodes are all available free for you to watch on YouTube. But yet, there is more. We got the news confirmed. We have been talking about this and talking about this and talking about this and talking about this. What is happening with Azteca Underground? And just the other day, MLW released information confirming MLW Azteca, a standalone miniseries premiering Thursday, January 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be featuring the grandest luchadors of Mexico clashing with Major League Wrestling best of the best. MLW matchmaker Cesar Duran presides over the action from sold-out arenas in Mexico to underground fight clubs. Court Bauer had a quote stating that MLW Azteca is the next chapter in our ongoing anthology series, and it will take MLW, its wrestlers, and our fans to a very different and thrilling setting. So now we know,
Right.
MLW Azteca, it's happening.
This is why I did not want to reveal the spoilers that were from that crash, that crash event that I mentioned in the Indie Roundup, because they're most likely going to be put onto this Azteca product show. Yeah. So we will be talking about them. Do not fear. I'm not just bringing stuff up to tease you. This was, I feel like knowing the matches and the results is going to spoil the presentation that I feel like is going to be extremely unique on this MLW show.
Yes. And so the series finale of Fusion Alpha is going to air next Wednesday, December 15th. And then we are going to get MLW Azteca starting January 6th. So the seeds have been planted. Now more than ever, as we saw too on this week's episode, about Azteca Underground becoming more predominant as a storyline, as a theme in MLW. And I do like this concept of the anthology series with MLW, with having these chapters. Who knows, maybe this Azteca series is just an anthology and will be kind of a one and done. Or if we, especially if they see the success in it, they can add to it and maybe do a season and kind of almost present it like the original Lucha Underground, where you had seasons, and they can kind of intertwine that in and out of MLW through the Fusion anthology.
Yeah, they're still working on adding a second hour of programming somewhere on TV, so even more options to make that happen.
Mm-hmm, yes. And Brendan, you had any more thoughts about the Azteca Underground series finally coming to fruition, or even, your thoughts on possibly where are we going to get these matches from? Is it, primarily from the Crash show, or do you think they've already started filming other things?
I know they've already filmed other things. Lucha Blog reported this for me, that MLW did an unannounced taping using the training area behind Auditorio de Tijuana. Basically, it's, if you know that area, that fits very much with that Boyle Heights aesthetic. So he's speculating in the same way that I'm speculating. That's kind of going to have more of an underground fight ring look to it. But MLW did do some of that taping there. Let's see, they had, so it looks like Pagano was there, Savio Vega, Aramis, and Hijo del Vikingo. So I have no idea how much of that is going to make it onto MLW regular TV, or AAA is going to put a stop to that, or on AAA TV or what. But there was a taping that MLW was sponsored that had all those wrestlers in Tijuana at kind of a undisclosed location. So sounds like we're going to get a little bit more than just that crash taping, and in this anthology series at least.
Yes. Well, when in Rome, and in this case Mexico, might as well film an entire Fusion series while you're there.
Right?
More cost effective that way.
It is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you're going to, the Hollywood, if you're going to have location costs, go there once, right? You don't need to go back. Go there once and get it all done.
Yes. Well, that is this week in Major League Wrestling. Make sure to stay tuned to the Lucha Central Weekly podcast for more information, especially as we get closer to MLW Azteca. Up next, it's the segment you know, you love. It's This Week in Lucha Libre History with Dusty.
That's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for this day and Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera. He's got information, he's got birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more, and it's all about Lucha Libre. And that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week, we're breaking from tradition, and we're celebrating Rey Mysterio's birthday. Saturday, December the 11th, will be Rey's 47th birthday. And in honor of Rey Mysterio and his omnipresent ubiquity within Lucha Libre, we've each decided to talk about one of our personal favorite Rey Mysterio matches. If you've been a longtime fan of the show, you've heard my story about how Rey Mysterio mask was my gateway to Lucha Libre. But for this occasion, I've chosen his Apuestas match versus CM Punk at WWE Over the Limit 2010. This match is really special to me as it's also my son's favorite wrestling match of all time, and it was this feud that really made him a Rey Mysterio fan. At Elimination Chamber in February 2010, Rey Mysterio pinned CM Punk, which ruined any chance he had of wrestling for the title and wrestling in the main event at WrestleMania 26. This was his big storyline. And this led to a match between Punk and Rey at WrestleMania with the stipulation that if Punk won, Rey would be forced to join the Straight Edge Society. And despite interference from Serena and Luke Gallows, and Luke Gallows, when Punk lifted Mysterio from behind and attempted to execute the GTS, Rey was able to reverse it into the 619 and get the win. And this all led up to an Apuestas match at Over the Limit 2010, where Rey demanded that the vain Rudo Punk, he had to put his hair on the line against Rey joining the Straight Edge Society. And it was just fantastic. The match saw Rey win. Punk would later don a mask to cover both his scalp and his embarrassment, but the story wasn't over. The ending of the story saw Rey and Punk feud for a further month before competing in the Fatal 4-Way match for the World Heavyweight Championship at the June 2010 pay-per-view Fatal 4-Way, which Rey won, becoming World Heavyweight Champion, won that big gold belt, ended the feud, and he moved on to a program with Kane. Brendan, which match did you pick this week?
Well, I had a harder time picking a match, so I'll get into that in a second. I do want to throw a little bit back to what you were just talking about. In the whole hair feud, Serena Deeb got her head shaved, and we got a call back to that on AEW last week, which made me laugh. Like CM Punk saw her backstage and said, "Nice haircut," and that was. So I just so cool. It's in the brain right now. That whole feud was fantastic.
It was it was so much better than WWE intended for it to be. It really ended up being kind of one of the defining moments of both of their times on SmackDown.
Yeah, well, and
so cool.
You have two people who are definitive of a generation. Two of the greatest wrestling minds. Working together, like even Vince McMahon's famous tearing up of scripts can't stop them from creating magic. So I always wonder what that feud would have looked like if there wasn't like a Vince McMahon element to possibly holding them back.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been a lot better.
So where I was at, I was all over. There was that feud you were thinking of. You had Rey Mysterio's giant killer moments later on, which was just definitive of elevating little guys to being competitors in the WWE instead and broke the mold for Vince McMahon guys being the only guys that ever get pushes. But I had to go completely hipster and just go all the way back to the ECW feud with Psychosis, and I can't pick one of those matches. Just any of them. There were like 3 or 5 of them. Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis. They broke new ground every time they did that. They changed wrestling for so many viewers. Like there's just no way I can't talk about that when I think about Rey Mysterio's birthday and Rey Mysterio's impact on wrestling. It started there when he was like 19. And, the world of wrestling has been eternally changed from just that feud. But to the point I just made, like your feud and the giant killer phase and the 2 or 3 different factions that he was a part of in WCW as WCW was more matured. He changed wrestling multiple times. So I didn't have the one match. I'm going to go back, any of those ecosystem matches again. Just watch them. If you haven't, your brain will melt. Miranda, what did you have?
Did we lose you, Miranda?
I'm here. I had to mute my mic because of my dogs.
No, I get that.
So I was saying that I went with something a little different, and because it was really the start of a whole storyline that refueled my love for Rey Mysterio. I began watching him in WCW and loved his run there. But where I truly got reconnected and fell in love with Rey Mysterio was his road to the World Championship and the 2006 Royal Rumble match. Starting off at number 2, lasting over 60 minutes. You know, the joy that we felt, as fans felt, as he felt winning that. I mean, one of the best underdog stories in all of pro wrestling. And he did it by being him. And there was such strong ties to Eddie Guerrero's passing and all of that. But, the more I think about it now, it was really because of that. Rey Mysterio was someone that fans adored for, over a decade at that point.
Yeah.
And finally was getting the recognition that in the land of giants was something that,
right.
He should have never had. And doing it with the idea of family in mind, which is one of the biggest themes in Latino culture. And being able to honor someone who's passed and being able to accomplish something in their name is one of the biggest honors and accomplishments of someone's life. And so the more I pass time with it, I mean, obviously it's sentimental and it's really, invaluable, but it's also, a rarity that he is truly one of the people who've got to have his career being a luchador. And he's gone through the ups and downs of having a mask, not having a mask, no limit soldiers,
right.
teaming tag team partners left and right, but through it all, Rey has been Rey Mysterio, and he is iconic, recognizable, and someone that everyone has looked up to. That whole storyline for me personally is just, I adore, but that match in and of itself is something that sticks out in my head all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was referencing that a little bit when I was talking about his, but yeah, like, to your point, he is a luchador that got to stay a luchador. Even his son isn't going to be a luchador for the majority of his career, it appears. And then he got to redefine what it was to be a wrestler in the WWE, multiple times. So, I mean, just an incredible legacy on that alone. Yeah.
Yes.
It's so hard to not pick that series of matches.
I know. That's just me. But that's the beautiful thing. I mean, as Desi mentioned, we went in a different direction today because the birth of Rey Mysterio, has cemented lucha libre in so many forms. Of course, the influence in Mexico, but that crossover appeal would not be where it is today if it wasn't for Rey Mysterio. I don't know if we'd be having these conversations about, most, luchadors in these other promotions, or Lucha Libre on American television if it wasn't for, of course, the work that did, like ECW and everyone who came from Mexico there, like what we saw in the Cruiserweight division, big storylines like Rey later on. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for that. And a lot of it always seems to be able to be tied back to Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We do have to be fair. Some of it is the people he was working with.
Oh yeah.
He, ECW, he had Psicosis and Super Crazy and other people to work with. WCW, he had much of the same crew, but also he had Eddie Guerrero, and there was always good people around him. It was the right time, but he was the catalyst for a lot of it, for sure.
Yes. Well, that is this week in Lucha Libre history. Make sure to check out this day in Lucha Libre history on luchacentral.com. But wait, there's more. Brendan, can you let our listeners know what else they can find on luchacentral.com?
Heck yeah. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's time to do it. luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. Place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives and all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of that, it's free. luchacentral.com. Your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Brendan, you spoke a little bit about some breaking news with Ring of Honor, but we know Ring of Honor is heading into, one of the biggest weekends of their entire career. But also, we've had this week in ROH, so go ahead and take it away.
So, ROH TV this week, we had the ladies starting off to see who's going to face Roxy at Final Battle. And that was, Willow wound up getting the spot, Willow Nightingale. So she's going to move on to face Roxy. They also used that time to interweave a little more of a feud. So we're going to see some other matches that are happening. And then the main event of that show, we had Bandito and PJ Black. Bandito wound up winning this one in what has to be the most bizarre ROH angle. This angle would have fit in great in WWE, so I'm very confused by it. PJ Black apparently has hypnotized I just lost his name.
Flip Gordon.
Flip Gordon. There we go. He's hypnotized Flip Gordon into being the evil mercenary that he was basically for all of 2020. And so to exercise his control over Flip, he made him interfere in this match right in front of the referee, who then justifiably threw the whole match out. So Bandito gets the win. I don't understand why this was necessary. Especially when you have two lucha talents like this. I was really looking forward to this match until I saw all of this craziness going on. This is kind of an example of the bizarre story overriding what two guys could just legitimately do. Anyway, so we had the Final Battle card started to take shape, except for the fact that we had the breaking announcement that Bandito is now not going to be at the show. So I have not heard any updates on who will replace him yet. Lucha Blog jokingly said, "Has anybody checked Rush's knee?" But so they still have not made any major announcements on that. That is going to be this weekend. So by the time this show goes live, you will have probably only a couple of hours with which to catch the match live. So hopefully there's something will go out between now and then to get things up. But let's go over the card as it looks right now. We have, to start off the show, we have Chelsea Green and the Hex, which is Marty Bell and Sienna, against Miranda Alizé and the Allure, Mandy Leon and Angelina Love. We have Dragon Lee versus Rey Horus, which was already going to be one of the best matches on the card, but without Bandito on the card, that could be the one that steals the whole show. Homicide, Brody King and Tony Deppen against Taylor Russ, Tracy Williams, and Eli Isom. We have a Fight Without Honor featuring Shane Taylor versus Kenny King. So this is kind of that payoff that I've been talking about, where they're shifting away from LFI to Kenny King versus Shane Taylor. It'll be interesting. This one will be interesting to see how it pays off. If LFI gets involved in it, that might indicate that they're gonna do something with LFI when ROH comes back. If not, they just may be covering their bets and LFI might still be there. We'll see. It's a long ways off if they even get to that return match. The ROH 6-man tag team championships will be on the line with Shane Taylor Promotions defending against the Righteous, Vinny Marsaglia, Bateman, Dutch. We'll have an ROH TV championship match with Dalton Castle against Rhett Titus, Silas Young, and Joe Hendry. And then the Pure Championship will be on the line with Josh Woods against Brian Johnson. The ROH Tag Team Championship match is the OGK, Taven and Taven and Maria's husband versus the Briscoes. I expect the Briscoes are probably going to win that one. And then the main event match was scheduled to be Bandito against Jonathan Gresham, but Bandito is sick again, so we'll see. But that's our ROH. Again, Final Battle, which is their last event until second quarter of next year. At which time they will have undergone a serious kind of reskinning and refacing of things. So this is, even without all the Lucha content, this one is kind of worth seeing to just kind of, it's going to be a moment in history and you'll be kind of wanting to remember it because ROH is probably never going to be the same again if they authentically make it back. I don't even know at this point. That's their plan, and they keep saying that's their plan. But 2020 has proven to me that nothing is going to go the way that anybody plans. So we'll see. But that's my ROH news for this week.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about Final Battle next week, even just, what happens with the main event. So make sure you stay tuned to luchacentral.com and the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Brendan, do we have some CMLL updates as well?
Just real quick. They did work on the, the Grand Alternative tournament. And they had a CML middleweight tournament as well. So, on 1203 from Arena, Mexico, they had a number of matches for the CMLL middleweight championship. You had Espirito Negro beating Felino Jr., Templario beating Virus, Dragon Rojo Jr. beat Star Jr., Sobernario Jr. beat Guerrero Maya Jr., Templario beat Espirito Negro, and Sobernario Jr. again won against Dragon Rojo. So I don't believe, none of those were the finals. So it looks like we'll have another week of matches to determine who the middleweight champion is going to be. If I were to speculate, I'd say Sobernario Jr. is going to wind up with it, but we'll see. They did even back it up with Templario attacking Sobernario after the match, kind of building up energy for that final match. So that was the middleweight. The Grand Alternativa is about to start. This is going to be on an iPay-per-view, it's going to be $5 American. And it's going to feature the tag team of Magia Blanca and Volador Jr., another tag team of Akuma, Gran Guerrero, Blue Panther, and Cachorro, El Coyote, and Euphoria, Sonic and Stuka Jr., Enfermero Jr., and Mephisto, Pantera del Ring and Pantera del Ring Jr., Kevin Ario, and Rugido. So it's going to be a really good pay-per-view. I just wanted to kind of hype that up. That's also going to be on 12/10, so that's going to be right after the right in between when this is recorded and when this goes up. So it probably will have already happened. Hopefully you saw it, because there's this was poor planning on my part. There's no video on demand with these CMLL pay-per-views. So, I will try and cover it for you next week if you didn't catch it, but, it's a Friday show, well worth catching.
Thank you, Brendan, for that. Up next, we're going to be talking this week in NXT. We had War Games this past Sunday, and for Lucha Libre fans, you may have been interested in the opening match, which was the women's War Game match. You had the team of Raquel Gonzalez, Kaylee Ray, Io Shirai, and Cora Jade versus the team of Dakota Kai and Toxic Attraction, Gigi Dolan, JC Jane, and Mandy Rose. The star that really came out of this was Cora Jade. She had the big jump off of the top of the cage onto a table. I mean, I know there's a lot of mixed reviews about War Games. I know one of the biggest critiques was that there was too many weapons in both matches. But this was a great way to start the show. And also, I mean, looking at the implications, we talked about it before. You know, last year's War Game match, you had Raquel Gonzalez pinning Io Shirai, and that set the tone for much of 2021, of 21, or 22, yep. Or 20. Oh my gosh, the year. But the year that was. And so it seems like following in suit that Cora Jade is someone that they foresee being a future women's champion. But also, again, kind of the oddity of seeing Raquel Gonzalez and Io Shirai on the same team, whereas last year they were on opposing teams. But, you know, you could see why maybe with some newer talent wanting to maybe do something different and something extreme. However, you know, a lot of positive reviews over the women's War Game match. As far as this week on NXT, well, we did have some lucha action where we haven't so much in the past. Speaking of Toxic Attraction, JC Jane and Gigi Dolan did have a match right after War Games. That's pretty brutal. It was a non-title match, though, against Valentina Feroz and Yulisa Leon, who has definitely been teaming up more frequently on NXT television. You know, of course, the one time that I do my things.
Well, they're agreeing with you.
They're supporting your spot.
Cheers from the audience.
Cheers to the audience. And so, yes, they have been a team set together over the past few weeks, and actually had a strong start into this match. Yulisa Leon had a really good start, and Valentina Feroz really picked that up as well throughout their match. And both playful and energetic, which you could see getting on the nerves of Toxic Attraction. But, you know, when you're that young and energetic and exciting, you can also, you know, make some mistakes, which they did do in their match. And, of course, just the experience of JC Jane and Gigi Dolan may be new to NXT fans, but not so, or fairly familiar to, you know, those on the independent scene. So knowing they have the experience on their side. But we had, I believe JC Jane, with the win, the big kick to Feroz for the win. And Toxic Attraction, you know, still injured, but still dominant, in this non-title match. We then did see some Legado de Fantasma action. Yes. Santos Escobar versus Zion Quinn. And really, the theme about this match too was, where is Elektra Lopez's alliances, maybe loyalties lie? She did come out with the Legado, with Santos and with Joaquin and Raul, but she stayed on a different side of the ring. Visually, you could see Elektra and Zion continuously stare at each other throughout the match. Santos got in some really good chops. But also there was a pretty fun moment in the match where Zion Quinn kind of blocked Santos Escobar as Escobar ran into him and just fell flat. But one thing that commentary talked about that I really liked and I agreed with is that Santos Escobar is the type of person where you give him just a little bit of an edge, or you give him one opening and he'll take advantage of it, especially with, of course, the big size differential between Zion Quinn and Santos Escobar. Santos has done this before and knows when to pick his spots. But at the end of the match, things took an interesting turn when Zion Quinn was laid out and Elektra ended up placing a pair of brass knuckles in his hand. When Zion kind of woke up, he realized he had the brass knuckles. He ended up knocking out, I believe it was Raul Mendoza off of the apron. But then that was what opportunity Santos needed in order to hit the Phantom Driver for the win. So I think it's figuring out, was she trying to do that to purposely get Zion disqualified? Was she trying to do that to help him out? So this may be the new story we're seeing with Legado as far as, this allegiance that Elektra may have to Legado, or is she more interested in Zion? I'm still very unsure how I feel about this story. It's one thing to really, you're putting the attention on the newest member of Legado, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But for a minute, NXT was very high on all of these love angles, and dropped some of them quickly. I think more of a serious love angle could be interesting compared to what we saw with Indy, and Dexter, which was a lot more comedic. But it takes the attention away really from Santos, and almost like he doesn't run his own faction. And that's kind of how it feels like. I'm just very curious about it. So, the good news is they're on TV. So if they can just protect Legado.
I was going to say, this is, I know how I feel about it. I hate this story, but at the same time, I'll take it because it's the only thing they're willing to give us. So,
Protect Legado. Hashtag protect Legado.
Yeah. I'm going to start doing that actually.
Yes, hashtag protect Legado. But yeah, some good, lucha adjacent, lucha libre action on NXT, which again, we haven't been getting as much as we used to. Raquel Gonzalez still has a firm eye on the NXT championship, but Cora Jade now is coming up, really with a lot of spunk and, confidence after the win at War Games. So we will see where all of the women's division kind of shakes out after this. And of course, some of the other storylines that we saw this week. So make sure to check out luchacentral.com though for your NXT results. And with that, we're heading into the final segment of this week's show, and that's This Week in WWE with Dusty.
Yeah, a little bit to run down and then kind of a cool story at the end. But first up, we had SmackDown. Los Lotharios, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo defeated the Viking Raiders in what was more of an angle than a match. The match, if you want to call it that, was under 2 minutes, and you knew it was going to be a quick one when Angel immediately pulls off the pants as his opening move. It just took a minute for Humberto to roll Eric up for the pin. Took 1 minute and 40 seconds after a distraction from Rick Boogs. Post-match, the Viking Raiders were really upset with Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura, but they kind of got over it and bonded when Boogs started to rock out to the Viking Raiders theme on the guitar. It was unusual. Hopefully it leads to more for Los Lotharios than being smaller players in a feud like this. At least they're getting on TV. On Raw, we had Zelina defeating Nikki ASH. This match was also just short and sweet. After hitting a crossbody that would have made Ric Flair weep tears of joy, Zelina hit a picture-perfect Code Red to pick up the win in just 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Then later in the evening, we saw Rey and Dominic defeat Alpha Academy, and they will go on to face the Street Profits next week and the Tag Team RK Bronament Tournament. This is basically a singles match with the seconds on the apron, but I think keeping Otis entirely out of the match actually makes more sense for the Mysterios based on its size. It makes Otis look more like a monster in a way that I like. The finish saw Chad Gable missing a moonsault, and Dominic seized the opportunity to use the most lethal move in WWE, and he hit a surprise roll-up to get the win in 3 minutes and 12 seconds. But also this week we had big news. Rey Mysterio was teasing a big announcement this week, and it was formally announced that he will star in a new Cartoon Network Latin America series titled Rey Mysterio versus La Oscuridad, which means the darkness. It will be produced by Mexican animation studio Viva Calavera and a production partnership with Rey himself. The first season will have 10 episodes and will premiere in Latin America in 2020, and the art style is heavily influenced by Lucha Libre itself. This has the promise to be the greatest Lucha cartoon to date, and as a fan of both Lucha Libre and animation, I'm really excited to see this. The official description says Rey Mysterio versus the Darkness tells the story of Oscar, a wrestling fan who will team up with his idol Rey Mysterio to face supernatural beings and fight against the forces of evil. Villains from the world of wrestling and characters from Mexican tradition and the world of fantasy. Behind these extraordinary opponents is Ouroboros, an evil fighter who uses dark forces that he does not fully understand. Rey Mysterio and Oscar must work together and do their best to defend the city and themselves from his evil plans. I'm super hyped for this. If you recall, we announced this last year when it was announced in Latin America, but it was announced this week in the United States. I don't know. There's been a lot of speculation that Cartoon Network America is already interested in it. It's, tested very well apparently in Latin America. It's going to debut next year. And based on its appearance in Latin America, apparently that determines whether or not it will debut in the United States. Hopefully we get to see it. I have a feeling it'll be pirated on the internet if nothing else.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The deep waters will have it, but I said this off air, and after we went in depth with Rey Mysterio's impact on his birthday, I just don't see a world where this doesn't do well. There's just no way.
It's just so cute. Yeah. I just want to squeeze it how adorable it is.
Yeah, you owe it to yourselves to go online and look at the production art if you haven't seen it already. It's incredible. They did such a good job.
I wanna juxtapose that. It's adorable and badass at the same time.
Well, yeah, I mean, for those who love adorable, it's adorable because it's just some of the art too, with the lucha masks and the kids in the ring. It's so cute, but the Rey Mysterio actual animation looks sick.
That's what everybody always says about me. I'm adorable, but I'm badass.
Badass. I was going to say that's the trick. Is it's a very rare combination. You have to be a freak like Dusty in order to and that's why I wasn't. I have nothing against the adorableness. I just enjoy the fact that it's able to do both at once, which is kind of super cool. I want to ask Dusty. You said it has the potential to be the greatest lucha animation. What do you think even is going to rank? Because I can only think of 2 animated shows at all that feature luchadors, and one of them is the Tiger Mask cartoon. So I'm not.
There was Mucha Lucha, and then there was also one I was a big fan of called Manny Rivera: The Adventures of El Tigre. That was a Nickelodeon program.
Okay.
And his dad was like a Santos style luchador named Blanco Pantara, and his grandpa was like a super rudo. I can't remember the grandpa's name. And he was trying to decide whether he was Technico or Rudo. Like, it was such a good show and had a lot of promise. I don't know why it ended. There was even Happy Meal toys based on it. I've got the whole set. And so I'm really looking forward to this. And I think Cartoon Network is going to, if the art is any indication, they're going to go about this the right way, and I'm super looking forward to it.
Well, Rey is involved in the production, as you mentioned.
Right,
so
yes, he's a full partner in the production, which is incredible for the authenticity and the vibe and the
and
not the reality, but you know what I mean, yeah.
Well, we know he's super involved in his artistic representation. Everything that he's got on his gear is something that he's involved in. Like, no matter who's doing it, all of his posters and his art is stuff that he's very hands-on with. So you know the quality is going to be good because he's involved.
Very exciting show. Cartoon Network next year, so when it debuts, we'll be back with more news about it.
Heck yeah. I'll be watching it.
Okay. And, well, that is this week in the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Go ahead and make sure you follow Lucha Central on social media, at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at Lucha Central.com on Twitter. You can also check out the YouTube page that has hours upon hours of exclusive content like matches and interviews that you're not going to find anywhere else. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321, and then T-shirt guy is all spelled out. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the hashtag Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. If you are listening to this on one of your favorite podcast streaming platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbay, and much, much more, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe and get a notification every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating and, of course, leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts or reach out to us on social media with your thoughts on the show. Give us feedback, things you like, things you don't like, things we talk about more, things we should talk about less, so on and so forth, etc., etc. Reach out to us on social media, and we mean that wholeheartedly. Please, we'd love to always hear feedback. We always love to hear from those who listen and let us know your thoughts on the show. And of course, a big thank you to our partners at thechairshot.com who also stream this on their website. Make sure you check out the Chairshot Radio Network that has lots of great podcasts, along with the Lucha Central Podcast Network that has hours upon hours of podcast content for you to listen to. For Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will be back with you next week. Yes.